so much of how we think of work has been shaped by the second industrial revolution. The workplace is very much like a machine, very much detached from human emotion and in some cases, the human experience. Hey, dreamers, welcome to season 3 of the Dreaming Forward podcast. I am so excited to be launching season 3. I love being able to have conversations with you all and think through really important business topics with you, as well as share updates about what's been going on with me. So I'm going to get the update part out the way real quick because I want to spend time talking about our topic for August. The break in July was wonderful for me. I got a chance to do a little bit of an energetic reset and discover some new areas that I want to touch in business. I'm excited and thrilled to be moving into more experiential marketing, which is nice because I travel quite a bit and I'm on the road and going places, and being able to bring myself to new experiences as well as creating community worldwide means a lot to me. So you'll probably see some updates on that over the next few months. I'm also really excited because I am doing more with my book. So I talked about it a little bit. Every now and then I bring it up in episodes. For the most part, I'm pretty quiet about it. I published my first book last September. It is called Evolution to Equity. And in it, I describe my ethos, my philosophy around what I call people, culture, and inclusion. And that's actually our topic for this month. Gonna get into more of that shortly. But the final update, and this is something I'm really excited about, hence my colorful blouse today. I am officially launching the Synapse Experiential Learning Institute. This is something that is near and dear to my heart because training is near and dear to my heart. Training makes up, I would say, almost a majority of my business's revenue, whether that is in small groups, large group trainings. I even consider a lot of my speaking engagements to be training engagements because I'm helping people through a process of discovery and learning. But as a part of that training, and especially as a part of me taking my business global, I realized that I can't be everywhere at once. And I'm not quite at a point where I want to license my trainings. So I was like, I need to create an online school. I've been working on this for quite some time. I had all the content because, again, I have all of these trainings lined up and stacked up. But unfortunately, I couldn't figure out a way to set it up. And so the process and the project, rather, stayed on hold for a year, really a year and a half. I finally just said, forget it. I'm going to bootstrap it and figure out how to do this myself, just like I did with the podcast. And so I've been building the school on my own, and I've gotten it to a great point. I now have an assistant who's going to help me take it to the finish line. And the Synapse Institute officially launches on September the 9th, 2024. So you'll hear more about that in the September episodes, of course, because it's going to be launching. My baby will be opening. But I wanted to demo and just introduce a lot of the topics that I'll be discussing in the Synapse Institute. And that leads me to our conversation for this month, which is around what is people, culture, and inclusion. People, culture, and inclusion is a phrase that I've coined to describe the intersection of human resources, organizational development, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. So historically, we treated them as though they are three very separate and distinct disciplines, and in some ways they are in terms of their implementation. However, they overlap so much in terms of their heart, the purpose, and the benefits that they can bring to people in the workplace and to leaders as individuals. So I was really excited to publish Evolution to Equity. And you can purchase this on Amazon. The link is always in the description bar for the podcast. But you can purchase it to learn more about how I explain this intersection of people, culture, and inclusion. But more importantly, I wanted to spend time on the podcast talking about it because now that we've had 2 seasons, I think it's over 30 episodes, and talking about these individual topics. But I wanted to bring it all together so you all will understand my mind and my heart about how I approach this work and why they are so interconnected to me. So each episode this month, the remaining 3, because it's going to be the first one and it'll be 3 more for the month. They are going to talk about people, culture, and then inclusion as separate topics, again, to start to understand how they shape up and how they have formed over time as disciplines, but then also how I approach it through my work. With that being said, I'm excited to hear your thoughts and your feedback. The world is in a very interesting place economically, politically, socially. And I think now more than ever, we need more clarity about how we can leverage work to not only bring a sense of purpose to much of our lives, but also a sense of healing. I love my work. I feel as though I'm privileged. I have the perfect intersection of four aspects. First of all, I found something that I'm really good at. Two, I found something that the world needs. Three, I found something that I get paid a thriving wage to do. And four, I have something that I am able to market, and it is an in-demand skill. Those intersections, that's like the perfect blend. And again, for me, I know that I'm incredibly fortunate and very lucky. Not everybody gets to experience that. And that's a huge part of what I want to do through the podcast. I want to help people fall in love with work. I want to help people fall in love with their careers because while we're not just our job, what we do for work and through our job and through our career has such a significant impact on our self-esteem, but also in how we impact the world and how we show up for others. Again, people, culture, and inclusion, it represents the intersection of human resources, organizational development, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. How that shapes up is by creating strategies for businesses to build thriving workplaces. It also creates a sense of purpose and direction for how the organization will reshape itself over time. And then finally, it looks for ways to bring in a deeper sense of community and belonging through inclusion work. I purposely coined this phrase, people, culture, and inclusion, or PCI, as I call it for short, because I think that we are at a very interesting precipice in business. So much of how we think of work has been shaped by the second industrial revolution, which took place at toward the end of the 19th century leading into the top of the 20th century. And in those types of situations, the workplace is very much like a machine. People are inputs. That's why I say human resources. So humans pretty much exist as an input to create outputs for the company. And there is this very careful measurement of people and their productivity and performance. Very much detached from human emotion, and in some cases, the human experience. And then we move toward more of what I would say almost like a hyper capitalistic workplace style in the 80s, and is deeper than just a political change because I think people easily assign it to one particular politician and their policies. But I think it's deeper than that. I think that it is a representation of how much of the world felt from an economic, a political, and social landscape of wanting more and being very focused on consumption. And work was a part of that, how we showed up in work, what we expected from work. That mindset pretty much hit rock bottom around the time that the Great Recession started. And at that point, people realized that not only was work more important to them than just an input for an output, but it also had a significant impact on every other part of their lives. So even though we can clock out of work, work doesn't clock out of us. And the way we show up in work, the stressors we experience in work, the things that we celebrate about our work, the feeling of fulfillment that we get from our work, it doesn't just go away because we're at home. That then continued to escalate until we got to the pandemic, and now work is literally in our homes. And it was quite jarring for a lot of us. So many of us were used to very siloed experiences at work, and work is here, and our work friends are here, and we only exist in this way at work. So now, when that is colliding, and you have loved ones who have very different work and even school experiences, now all having to do that at the same time in the same space, it upended much of what we thought about who we were and what work could be for us. That coupled with the racial injustice protests and a lot of the social uprisings that we've seen really for the last 15 years, but especially over the last 5, it changed the way we thought about what was possible at work. Now, how we often hear this shape up is as almost like a war between companies and employees. So it's either employees are winning or the company is winning. And my challenge to that is that it's a balance of both. I don't see work as a fight. I don't see the world of work and the world of business as a tug of war. I see it as an ebb and flow. I think I've mentioned on another episode, I grew up playing an instrument. So I'm a trombonist. And one of the things that I learned very early in my journey in instrumental music and even in vocal music too, is the power of multiple voices to create what's called a blend. So, particularly in instrumental music, each individual instrument has a different pitch, sound, timbre, all of that. But when you play as an orchestra, there is something called blend, which is where you create one sound. And anybody who's watched the movie Drumline, you're familiar with that. And the one sound concept is that even though I can't necessarily change the sound of my instrument, because a trombone sounds like a trombone, a flute sounds like a flute, when I am listening across, so to the person next to me, and seeking to find alignment between their tone, their vibrato, and my own, we create a unique, unified sound. And so I carry that same perspective with me into business, the way I approach things. I think that sometimes one party might be right, sometimes one party might be wrong, sometimes both are right, sometimes multiple people are right. And so I love to think of work as an ecosystem rather than, again, a war where there are winners, losers, protagonists, antagonists. I don't think that that serves us. So in the book, I talk about that ecosystem. I spend a lot of time describing all the people that are involved in that ecosystem. But the point I want to bring out here, which will again lead to the further conversations that I'll have in the rest of the episodes for this month, is that when we start to see the blend of work instead of looking for the piece that we want to hang on to, I think we'll find greater fulfillment. We will find better solutions to workplace challenges. And I think that we will find greater cohesion and community. And that is arguably more important than anything else that we can do. So, here are my final thoughts about this while I wrap up this episode. When you think about your own experiences with people, culture, and inclusion, what are some of the highlights? What are some of the best experiences that you've had with the human resource functions over the course of your career? What are some of the aha moments or experiences that you've had with organizational development? Do you know what organizational development is? What are some of the experiences that you've had with diversity, equity, and inclusion? And again, this is over the course of your entire career. What I realized, especially as I move deeper into the journey of going toward full-time entrepreneurship, is that I have been working in all three disciplines my whole career and didn't even know it. Because I trained myself to think, oh, that's a specific job title. It's not that title, then it's not it. And that's just not true. So much of the heart of each of the three disciplines shows up in each of the three disciplines, across the disciplines. And so, again, in each of the episodes, I'm going to talk more about what those disciplines are. I'm going to describe them. I'm going to lay out the functional areas. I'm going to try to get a little detailed because I think it is important for any leader to understand those three in particular because they will make or break your company. The way the book is set up is that the first section deals with people, culture, and inclusion, and you specifically as a founder. So the book is geared toward company founders, but it can apply to any business leader. And I talk about how our whole lives have prepared us to be a practitioner of people, culture, and inclusion work. So even your earliest experiences with teachers and principals, with the store owner that you bought candy from as a kid, with your manager in your first job, with the experience of you transitioning from middle school to high school or elementary school to middle school. Those are all aspects of people, culture, and inclusion, but we don't always acknowledge it. And in particular, when we think about diversity, equity, and inclusion work, the ways in which we have been taught to build community are often our make or break point. Because if we have been taught that community exclusively means the best person wins, then we will see diversity, equity, and inclusion work through a very particular lens. If we have been taught that everyone should have access to everything at all times, that will lead us to behave in very specific ways. If we have been taught to prioritize certain parts of ourselves over other parts of ourselves, that is going to show up in the way we approach leadership. And where we start to experience issues is that how we have been taught to approach it is not always congruent with the way other people were taught to approach it. And this is where power, influence, and privilege comes into play. We're going to talk about all of that. I'm looking forward to these conversations. I cannot wait for these episodes to drop. And I look forward to hearing your comments. So again, share your thoughts below. What are your early experiences? And what are some of your highlight moments and low light moments with people, culture, and inclusion? What has human resources meant to you over the life of your career? What has organizational development meant to you? And finally, what are your thoughts about diversity, equity, and inclusion? What does that mean to you? Be sure to share, like, and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next episode. Bye, dreamers.